Okay, it is December 13th, 2016. This is the Goffstown Budget Committee. We are going to start with a roll call. Richard?
Richard Fletcher from Goffstown Village Law Enforcement.
Mike Smith.
Dennis Lynch.
Brian Fournier.
Greg Campbell.
Elizabeth DeBrule?
Diane McCarthy, School Board Rep.
Angela McKenzie.
George Fullerton.
Carl Soderquist.
Emily Sandway.
Peter Georgiantis, Selectman's Rep.
Scott Gross is excused, and Susanna, I was going to say Buswell, but that Buzzell, she is excused as well. And I haven't heard from John Stafford or who else are we missing? Might be it. Joanna is taking notes from video again because she has the flu. So I said and she will be happier at home. Okay, so we're going back to the town side. We have a lot of things to catch up on. Some of this has changed and shifted. The first thing we're going to do is correct an error, which Sue pointed out to us. If you remember the last time we met, Sue, I think, was on vacation, and when she came back, she reviewed everything we had done at our last deliberations, and she found an error where we had voted too much money. So this is a good kind of correction, because we get to take away some of the money. So this concerns the milfoil. So if you remember, there's already money in the budget to handle the milfoil, and then Namaste Lake Association had gotten a bid and they needed more money. But they asked, basically the request that they made at our meeting a couple of weeks ago for $20,000 was too much. They actually only need, sorry, I should have this.
9,500.
Yeah, 9,580. So that means we can add back into the budget $10,420.
Reduce it.
Reduce it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We don't wanna
Add back
add
into
it.
our pockets $10,420.
And it's not for, it's for the whole committee's budget, not just the Maskey Lakes request.
Right.
So it
Right.
goes into the Conservation Commission. We're going to reduce that
We're going to
by
adjust that
that.
line down.
Right.
So I'm going to make a motion that we reduce the Conservation Committee's line by $10,420. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I already spoke to my motion. Do you want to say anything else, Richard?
No,
Anybody else?
Do we have anybody from the Conservation Commission to talk to that?
We don't, except Sue can walk us through the
Well,
numbers if you'd like.
What's
but-
your question?
Well, I talked to Karen McCrae a few days ago, and she seemed to think that they were going to, I mean, from what I understand, she seemed to think that they were going to give $7,500 to Namask Lake and use another $7,500 to address the milfoil further upstream. And maybe I've misunderstood what she was talking about.
I think you have, because the total request, that the problem was when there was already money for Namaste Lake in the budget, and then they made an additional request. But what they brought to us was the total request, so it hadn't deducted
okay.
the money that was already in the budget.
Okay, I get it.
So that's why we're actually giving them the amount that they asked for. It was simply a numbers error on our part.
Okay.
So, okay, any further discussion?
That answers your question, right?
Yes, it answers my question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing that the Conservation Commission had brought to us was about the survey on top of the mountain. We do not have to consider that any longer because it's going to be taken care of this year out of this year's funds. So we don't have to worry about it. Pete, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, well, just that we were able to, with different areas, and grabbing funds from here and there, we were able to bring it into this year's budget. So it won't get done this year. It'll be
encumbered?
done next year, but so we'll encumber that $20,000 for the survey.
So we don't have to worry about that one anymore.
Is that a reduction as well, or is? I thought
No, we
already
tabled
voted
that
to-
motion, if you remember. We tabled that motion to get more information, so,
That was going to be an add-on.
right,
We
Thank you.
didn't do that.
right.
Thank you.
So all we do is not untable it
Sure.
and just let it lie.
Well, it was also for both a survey and some legal cost
Right.
to deal with the results of the survey.
Right, so the town has already got that covered.
Right.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, so, moving on, let's see, we have the water precinct budget, which we're gonna deal with later, and we have special articles to do, and we have the fire department to do. So, let's dive into the fire department. Pete, do you wanna bring us up to speed on what happened last night with just the fire department stuff?
Right, and, well, it has to do with the special articles, actually.
Oh, that's
There
true.
was a
it does.
special article to spend 500 and, I don't remember the top, but it's like 580 plus another 72,000 out of this year's, or the following year's budget. We took that article out. So that 72,000 that was in there that we were going to request is also going to be out of the fire department's request. That'll
Okay,
be
so we need to reduce the budget then by that amount.
That's been done on those handouts.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and hand those out
Yeah.
then, and we'll
Okay,
talk about that?
okay. Feel better.
The rationale was, if you read the article, that was, the special article that was written, it made it kind of confusing.
We're one
The other
short.
one? No.
There's one. You wanna-
Okay. So, do you want to explain further?
Well, the way the article was written, it was confusing because we still continue to carry the special article for the capital reserve for $225,000, which is still a special article for next year, as we've had since 2008. That's just a carry-on article. And we also had an article that was saying we were spending $580,000 and then another $72,000, which would have been raised by taxes. 580 coming out of the capital reserve fund. The other 72 was going to be raised by taxes. That was another article that was written. We had decided that we're better off just going with the $225,000 for the capital reserve fund, and hopefully, as it has for the last 8 years past, we would take that $72,000 out of that capital reserve fund, which is what you and I and we have discussed before.
Okay, so.
Does that clear it up for you?
Yes, but let me make sure since I knew about it in advance, I was already on this right page, but let me make sure everybody else understands that. So instead of, the idea originally was we were going to take the money we already had in the capital reserve fund, we were going to pass a special warrant article, we hoped, that would allow us to buy the truck with an additional $72,000. And then in addition to that, there was going to be another article putting $225,000, socking that away in the capital reserve fund for future purchases. Now they're saying, forget about the special warrant article to buy the truck. They're going to pass just the warrant article to put the $225,000 in the capital reserve fund, which will give them enough to buy the truck without, and they don't need voter authorization.
No,
for that.
the Board of Selectmen are the handlers of that fund. It doesn't have to go before the public.
So we are going to be getting a truck this year if that passes. We will be getting
Right.
the fire truck in 2016, and it will not have any additional impact on taxation.
No.
Okay. Does everybody understand that?
You're going to buy it in 2016,
Yeah.
and that's only,
2017.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we probably won't even see the truck till 2018, because it takes about a
Fit it
year.
out and-
It takes about a year to build it, and we don't get past until March, and then by the time you put the order in, and by the time we see it, it could very well be 2018 before we even see the truck.
Okay.
And don't forget, we are replacing 2 pieces of apparatus with that one vehicle. So we're going to be eliminating 2, or eliminating an extra one, so there'll be 2 for 1.
Okay.
okay?
Just one quick question. This is going to be funded out of the unexpended funds or the fund
Unreserved
balance?
fund balance.
Unreserved fund balance, there'll be no impacts to the tax rate.
Which is terrific. What's left in the fund balance after this, roughly?
$5 million. And we were instructed, we were told by, when our last audit, that that would be wise to spend those kinds of funds on this type of stuff, so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I thought the amount was that we should keep, they said we should keep 4.5 to 5 million in that account. Was that the number, Sue?
Somewhere between 8 and,
We're right in the middle of the range recommended by DRA,
yeah.
Okay.
and we have 5.4 million in there after setting the tax rate.
So they advised that we use that money to buy one-time purchases that will help us stabilize the tax rate. So that's what
We
they're
did.
doing.
Very good. Makes sense.
Okay, any other questions on that?
One more. Did you say that it didn't need the public vote for this?
Buying the truck does not require the public vote. The selectmen have to sign off on it.
Thank you.
So it will not be, you will not see it on the warrant article, but you will see the 225,000 that's going to the fire apparatus capital reserve fund.
When that fund was established, it was established that the selectmen would be the managers of that fund. That's how that happens. There's more, there is ways that the fund can be set up that it has to take a vote of the taxpayers to do it, but that fund wasn't set up that way. And I don't know how you plan on setting up your fund. School's talking about doing that. I don't know.
That's exactly what I was asking. I was trying to think of how that related together, actually. So it's exactly what I was thinking, so thank you so much for bringing that up.
So we need a motion to take the 72,000 out of CIP? No?
No, it was already in the special article, so with the special article removed, the 72 is
So
gone.
there's no action required on our part? Okay. Okay. Any other changes to the fire department requests, Pete, from last night?
Nope.
Okay. George, did you have something?
Only when you get to considering line items on the
Okay.
fire department budget.
We're ready for that, if Pete doesn't have anything else?
Nothing on that. Later on, when we start going through the budget, I can go a couple other little things.
Okay.
Another little thing.
All right, so let's start going through line by line on the fire department. Any items for discussion, motions to make?
Yes, I got this, I'm not sure which line it is come out of, but I read over this generator memo that was sent back, and I still have questions on it. I still think it's excessive because it says, this budget proposal includes removing the Kohler 20 RZ generator and transfer switch at the Church Tree Station. Well, that's already done in this year's budget. It's already gone. My daughter lives off on that side of town, so I go by that. Generator's already there sitting on pallets. So, removal, it doesn't, I mean, if it has that in this, then this is excessive. And I still don't see where the breakdown, of what the others cost, because I was looking, granted it's on the internet, I was looking, and general rule of thumb, it would be about $5,000 to move such a generator and install it. I'm open to any more information on this. It says to upgrade the wiring. I'm not sure what wiring upgrade is going on there.
It's everything with Chief down, so.
Yeah, Chief, if you want to come down?
Yeah, that would be good.
Good evening. The guidance we got from this particular case was Powers Generator. Looking at the panel, the current electrical panel at the Terrell Hill Road Station dates back to the 70s. So they felt that there was going to be significant rewiring or looking at a new panel in itself to handle the transfer switch. So that's why they weren't specific. They just didn't know what exactly they were going to get into. So they bid the job as if anything else they were getting into something that was aged like that.
Well, yeah, that's actually a follow-on question I had for you. So you don't know, my guess is that panel would be a 100 amp panel.
No, it's about 200.
It's a 200.
It's a 200 amps.
But it wouldn't meet code today. But that's where we're going to have discussion with the electrician to determine, if they're willing to connect up to a non-conforming panel. The answer that I probably expect to hear is probably no. So that's the reason why we're.
I don't think it's out of range. When you start changing electrical panels, you're not only
Yeah.
gonna change the panel, but you gotta change a changeover switch from the generator. So when the power goes out, the generator automatically starts and powers it. So there's a lot of heavy wiring, a lot of tubing, conduits and what have you in the ground.
And there has to be a slab to put it on.
There has to be a slab to put it on, right? So, when you start hiring an electrician at
Okay.
$100 an hour, it don't take very long to use up that type of money.
I think it's fine.
I mean, you're talking about a 3 or 4 day job.
And the chief budgeted, I don't know if you caught what he said, but they budgeted for worst-case scenario.
Right.
Which is the thing to do, right?
Yeah, plus you got, gas.
Well, plus or minus
tank.
10%.
You're gonna run on gas, right?
It says plus or minus 10%.
Hold on,
too.
one at a
Sorry.
time, one at a
So
time.
you gotta put, gas tanks there to support it and run the tubings.
Mike?
Do we currently have an emergency generator at Terrell Hill?
We do. It's only a 10 kilowatt, which powers only a portion of the station, and it's over 20 years old, and it fails whenever, it seems like whenever we need
Yeah,
it, so.
put that in there.
I guess we don't staff that typically, right?
It's unstaffed right now, but whenever there is a major storm, we do staff it up for that reason. It's because it's an isolated area town. But also, we need to make sure that station is heated because we don't want the pumps to freeze up on the trucks and so on. So we just can't leave it unpowered, I would say.
So, just, you said an isolated area of town, you mean it doesn't have a full-fledged fire station, but it actually, most of the population that's where a lot of the building has happened in the last 10 or so years.
The build-out's been out, we're seeing increased activity in that area of town. So it's a station that it's in good position, put it that way.
Okay, so I'm assuming that if since the panel is a 200 kilowatt panel that's already there, and what you'd be replacing with it, you'd do it on the whole building instead of having a partial, transfer switch for certain circuits. Is that-
Right, this would have the ability to power the entire building.
Okay.
Yep.
Based on replacing the panel, I buy the
Yeah, it'd be more
estimate
than
now.
200.
I'm satisfied.
Okay? More questions? Dennis, did you have something you?
Oh, no, you said you budgeted worst case, the thing says plus or minus 10%, but
Yeah.
my only problem with it basically said, a price is $7,500. It would have been nice to see a breakdown, but I get it.
When we get closer, without a doubt, this, again, when we're talking about budgeting, we look at a number like this and say, realistically, this is going to be a worst-case scenario, but when it comes down to bidding out the job, we're going to be following the purchasing policy for the town.
So it'll go out to bid.
Well, it doesn't raise the level of bid, but we'll have to get 3 quotes for the
Okay.
job, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, any more questions about that item? Okay. More on the fire department. And emergency services, we'll do them all kind of at one, because they impact one another. I guess I had some concerns about the boat. A boat, to me, seems like a piece of apparatus.
Yeah.
And I wonder if then it shouldn't be funded through the apparatus capital reserve fund. Pete?
Do I agree with that? Yes. But we need to be cautious of with the capital reserve fund, because there's targeted dollars on outlying years for more equipment. So as you just heard earlier, we decided to take the extra 72,000 out of the capital reserve for next year.
Which is gonna push back other things. It's gonna have a
Exactly.
ripple
So if we
effect
do
through the
that,
rest of it.
if we do, now we're talking about maybe another 20,000 for the boat, we'd be taking 92,000 out of next year's CIP, the capital reserve. So here again, we're pushing it out, even further for the next replacement vehicle. The next replacement vehicle is, what was it, Chief, we went through this last night.
Looks like 2020 or possibly 2021.
When you establish that fund, which is a good thing, but it seems to me you said apparatus. Now, does a boat become apparatus?
I would say so. I would consider.
I don't think so.
Well, I would agree with you. I guess, Richard, the question is on that is, A couple of years ago, we lost a Chiefs car in the middle of the year.
Yeah, is that apparatus? No.
I don't think so.
Okay, but we took the funds out
No,
of
I
the reserve
I
fund
understand that. Yeah.
to buy a new vehicle. So I think that almost set the precedent of, yeah, if it's a piece of equipment, you know, with wheels or a boat or whatever,
Equipment
yeah, well,
and apparatus.
well, I guess you could call a boat a
No,
piece of
but,
apparatus.
you know, it's very misleading. When you say apparatus, to me, I think of a fire truck or a big tanker. I don't think of a chief's car. I don't think of a boat. That is something beyond, you know, the apparatus, to replace apparatus is costly, and that's your goal. You can replace a
Richard, you're preaching to
$30,000
the,
car.
I just got done saying, you're preaching to the choir on this. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you can't just start with, I think
Okay.
we need to nip it in the bud on what we keep charging
It is
to
what
that.
it is.
Now that we took the 72,000 out of it, I would more lean towards leaving the 20,000 in the boat in where it's at.
Okay.
That's,
I think I'm satisfied with that explanation. If it hadn't been for the change with the 72,000, then I probably would have pushed harder. But I do recognize that everything is charted out, and 72,000 is going to take a big chunk. But if the chief's car ever goes out again, I expect that to come out of the operating budget and
I
not
would too.
the apparatus fund.
Okay.
Okay,
Whatever floats your boat.
no puns. All right, are there more in the fire department? Emergency services? I guess I have one other, the other big one, the kind of elephant in the room on all this is the staffing changes. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I hope everybody took the time to read the staffing report. I actually did, believe it or not. I even flagged parts that they put together.
just to, I don't know if you were aware, but last night we had a public hearing to raise the fees for EMS, for the.
So what
emergency.
happened?
It was a public hearing, nobody showed up, it passed.
So where are our fees now? Like, how much did they go up? You don't have to give me specifically, but, you know.
We were charging the current Medicare rate plus 35%, and now with the rate changes will be Medicare rate plus 75%.
So before, when we were talking to you, you had put us in a ranking. I thought you said we were kind of in the middle on fees?
We were low average, and now we're, with the fee changes, we're high average for New Hampshire.
Okay.
So, but we're still in that average belt.
So what's the Medicare fee?
The Medicare, well, irregardless of the,
They pay a flat rate.
yeah, Medicare's capped. So if you're Medicare or Medicaid, irregardless of what our ambulance rates are set at, you're only gonna pay so much. Medicare's gonna pay so much, and then, you're not gonna be on the hook for any,
$900?
depending on the level of services, could be anywhere from $400 to $800 or $900, depending on the services provided.
Yeah.
So it's the other payers, the insurance and private payers, which accounts to about 37 to 40% of our payers or our patients that we transport, that would be on the hook for this increase. And majority of the insurance payers will pay this fee, and they have in the past.
Okay. Okay.
So, that said, with the increase in revenues from that fund is where the additional staffing is being paid for.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chief?
That's for personnel to operate the ambulance, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Chief, can you just share with us how you determine your rates? How do you set your rate?
You set your rates in, what I was told from day one, when talk about, the Center of Medicare Services, CMS, is the ones that would oversee whether you're establishing your rates appropriately or not, or reasonable. And they've always said that so long as you can account for your rates to cover your true costs for your services, you're fine, okay? It's when services that get in trouble where they charge way beyond what they typically would need to cover the operations of that service, then you see services get in trouble. In this particular case, we show that the revenue we bring in is what we need to operate. So year after year, we show that. And then anything that is not spent at the end of the year just gets carried over, and we're buying ambulances with it, so our equipment. So it's a system that seems to be working well since the town took it over after 2000 or somewhere around there. It's been functioning just like that for over 15 years now. So again, for New Hampshire, even with the rate increases, we're still not the highest. But as so long as you can prove that you're covering your costs with your rates, they say that's reasonable.
So I think that's really the nature of my question, is to make sure that we're charging what we need to charge, not what we think we can get. Because certainly when somebody's in an emergency situation, they're not in the position to comparison shop.
Right.
So I certainly want to be cognizant of the people who need your services, who aren't covered by insurance or are going to incur an out-of-pocket expense.
For example, not that we try to compare our rates too much, but for example, if you called 911 in Goffstown, your rates are going to be what were just established last night. And if you call 911 for an ambulance in, say, the city of Manchester, 5 minutes away, your rates are twice that.
Different ball of wax.
Twice
But you
that.
still bill for oxygen, you still bill.
No, that's all lumped
Yeah.
into one fee now.
Is that all in the one
Yep,
fee now?
it's under one fee.
Angela?
So they don't have an allowable?
Carl, excuse me. Oh, I just called an Angela.
It's okay. And it's none of my business. I'm not part of your department. I just want to raise awareness that I know with a lot of the insurances now, I just want to point out that a lot of them have high deductible health plans. So even though that they are having insurances that have to pay for them, they also have to meet these deductibles, so they will eventually or may have to be settled with those rates as well, which may be our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters, or co-workers. So that's one thing to also be scared of as well. So I just wanted to point that out as a neighbor. Thank you.
Carl?
I was just curious if there's an allowable for certain services, that you could charge this, but you're only going to get an allowable amount.
That's what happens with Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah.
We call it a capped service. And we could charge $1 million for your ambulance trip, but you're only going to pay $500. That's all we can get for it.
Yeah.
Not that we're charging $1 million.
Yeah, I know.
Good
Mike?
question. I'm assuming with the opioid stuff going on, that you're getting a lot of calls that go to folks who are not going to pay. Do you have as you set your rates and figure things out, you must make some accounting for what percentage of calls you're going to do that are going to be for free ultimately because you're not going to be able to collect?
Absolutely.
How
yeah,
big is
we-
that percentage looking?
Well, right now, we still run about 85% of our patients pay. So that 15% is the ones we struggle to get. And with the ambulance billing policy that we have mechanisms to either realize that they have hardship issues with paying, and they apply for hardship, and we write them off because they live here in town, or we send them to collection. And so the next time they want to buy a car or get a loan, they have to square up with us first before they get their loan. So it seemed to be working. We don't get a lot of money from our collection agency, but we've been getting some money back that we would never be able to get in the past.
Okay, so there's a lot of issues here in this proposal. So one of them was the rate change, which is already a done deal. Then we have the issue of adding staff, and then whether you're proposing adding part-time staff. Well, first of all, I want to say kudos to the fire department, because according to this report, you guys have raised your rating substantially in the last 10 years or so. So there's a rating system, and we were at 8 or 9,
Yeah, it's the.
and now we're up to 4.
It's
One
through
is
the
the
Insurance
best.
Services Organization. It's the insurance rating that's given to the community, which sets your insurance rates, whether it be residential or commercial. So if you live in an area where you're well beyond a fire department, or you don't have a hydrant nearby, your homeowner's insurance probably show it. But by having good training, good equipment, and another component of staffing is you can get that rating down lower to potentially lower your insurance rates. So by showing better staffing, next time that we're evaluated, we may be able to get a better rating after all.
Okay. So, and then we've done quite a jump. It's a 1 to 10 scale. We went from 8 or 9 to 4. So we've really improved that a lot.
It used to be 5 about 20 years ago, and it's come up to 4. A lot of it dependent on water systems, a lot of it dependent on hydrants, a lot of it being distance from the fire station. It's a lot of stuff involved in it.
And then, so the staffing, the increase in staffing is driven a lot by response times, as you spoke to us last time and went in here. So we have 3 ambulances in town, but only 2 of them are staffed at night. I'm mainly looking at the nighttime, because that, I think you would identify as the critical period, right?
I think the big thing to look at the report is, I can't recall the exact page, but there's a graphic where it shows our average response time that's correlated with the time of day.
Right.
And when we have the in-station staffing from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., where we staff the Perniville Station and the Village Station, our average response time hovers anywhere for fire and ambulance calls, hovers anywhere from say 4 to 6 minutes, maybe 5.5 minutes. The reason why we proposed the staffing change or the increase is because, as you can see on the graph, is that our average response time for ambulance responses doubles at night from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and nearly triples at night, especially after midnight, for fire responses. And that's alarming enough where, if you've got an emergency, you've got to wait longer. Yeah, during the day, we staff typically two ambulances. We can get 2 ambulances out immediately, maybe a third, depending on what's going on. But at night, we can get out 1 ambulance immediately. And that's the reason why you'll see the bump
For
in.
the whole town.
For the whole town, right, just 1 ambulance. And because of right now, just today, I noticed that our call numbers have now exceeded our busiest year ever. And we still have some time to go into the month of December. So this is going to be a record year for us, and I think it's just a trend that we're going to see over time. And, we need to address the staffing, or the response time, I should say.
So what if we have mutual aid calls from other communities during the middle of the night? Do we say no?
We
Or-
go, we get,
So we could be without an ambulance at all in town if it's out on a mutual aid call.
that and fire responses. For example, we've been in, for staffing situations, they've called for two fire trucks because it's a large fire, and we can only send them 1 because of our staffing. And same thing with the ambulance. If they request multiple ambulances, we can't get it to them. We just turn down the request. So we run about 5% of our total calls are mutual aid requests out of the town, and we request anywhere 2 to 3% coming back into town, depending on what's going on.
Okay, Pete?
Just to point out one of the important things that I don't want brushed over. Right now, we only carry 1 ambulance at night. This is going to put on the 2nd ambulance at night. The 3rd ambulance is actually, it's a backup. It's not something that's staffed all the time. So the chief's plan is to have 2 ambulances staffed in the evening, 1 at this end and 1 at the other end, I would imagine.
And another thing, too, is we're going to focus on cross-training the staff that would be part-time. So it helps, we'll get them out to go on fire calls also to reduce that average fire response at night, too. So we're going to be working on that also.
So the request is to add how many part-time?
Well, it's average, it's hours, so it's additional two part-timers, you could say, per day, that are working 12 hours. So it's a total of 24 hours in 1 day that would be staffed.
Okay. Okay, so that to me was the other question, because the report talks a lot about how you guys seem to be having trouble retaining part-time staffers because they have other jobs and they have family commitments.
Right.
It's not their primary job. So Angela brought this up last time, and I'm kind of wondering why we're going for part-timers. I mean, I guess because we need the 2 people, but
Well,
shouldn't we be
you
looking
see,
at 2
ultimately, the report
full-timers?
recommended that we hire full-time.
And didn't say 4?
4 in 1 year and 4 in the following year, but the issue comes down to, obviously, you would recognize it immediately, is the cost. As you saw in the report, the cost for part-time versus full-time doubles, almost triples, depending on where you're at with the retirement system and pay. So, in discussion with the Board of Selectmen, it was thought to look at a Plan B. You know, just, there was importance to deal with the response time. So the thought was to attempt to try to get a part-time system on its heels, to see if we can get what we need for staffing, using that approach. We realize it's going to be a challenge, and our staff is going to be working really hard to try to fill these boots. But we'll be keeping the board apprised of how we get that done.
You know, it's always been a challenge. It's been a challenge for 30, 40 years. And the one thing that might help as far as part-time call individuals is think about building a retirement system or something for them. Give them something to come to the fire department and be a call firefighter and have to answer a few alarms. And not just pay them $10 an hour, but give them a little benefit because they're working with people that are getting the benefits.
Well, there's a considerable amount of additional training that's required nowadays that wasn't required 10 years ago.
So we plan on marketing not just folks that live in town, because now that we'll have station accommodations to welcome firefighters that are already trained and certified from other communities to come in and work the day. So we'll be marketing across the state.
Okay. Carl?
Isn't there more turnover, though, when you work with part-timers?
It certainly is. Certainly is. It's a revolving door, and that's a challenge in itself. But
Well, the training is long, you make the investment, and then in a short period of time,
Right.
go up to a full-time job.
Pete?
Well, you know,
Important, hold on, Dick. It's my turn. What you find, hopefully, as you heard the chief say, we find already experienced firefighters or ambulance personnel to come in and fill these part-time spots. That takes care of a lot of the training issues you're talking about. And then when we looked at the full-time plan that the chief had come up with, that we for this year, for next year, and I think it was in 2018 or 2019, would have been additional $1 million to the budget, fire department budget.
A lot. But what about adding 2 full-timers?
Yeah.
It doesn't
just
fill, it
holding the
won't,
line
it
there.
won't fill the need.
right, when you
it will
talk,
help the need eventually.
Dick,
Right.
let the chief talk.
that's in we looked at many scenarios in the subcommittee that I had work on this report. We had whiteboards of different scenarios trying to make this thing work, and it comes down to hours filled, and just hiring 2 full-time would not complete that, because of the if they're full-time, they work 42 hours a week on average, and it still wouldn't fill those voids that we would need completely 7 days a week. So then we're looking into augmenting it with part-time, so that's where, we're looking into using a happy medium between full-time and part-time to fill the busy times, or fill that voids that we're having now. So, again, we'll be working with the selectmen. We think there'll be another opportunity for a SAFER grant. We called the SAFER grant, if you remember, back in 2008, we were awarded a SAFER grant to hire 2 full-time firefighters on FEMA's dime for 5 years. So we'll when that comes out again, we'll give the selectmen the word on that, see if that's an interest.
Well, that's great for the initial cost, but in the long term, it
Right.
doesn't.
Exactly.
It's a short-term solution.
Exactly.
But,
Angela?
I'm just saying, but if you want to accept the fact that you're going to need the $1 million in 3 years to support the full-time position, that's a fact that you would have to say, okay,
That $1 million was for 8?
That would be for additional 8 full-time, correct.
right. Remember, when you got full-time, then you're paying benefits,
Yeah.
retirement and all that. Part-time, you're not doing that, at least under 30 hours by law. Now, they work more than 30 hours, they have to be considered full-time.
You'd have to
Pay
provide them benefits.
Right, you got to pay them benefits.
Angela?
If the cost of having them full-time is just astronomical, but then obviously we're concerned about the high turnover rate and the cost of, and I know you say that you want to find someone who's already trained, but then what's the incentive of them staying here? lo and behold, I have a feeling that you're going to find someone you're going to have to continuously train, and then they're going to go running again because there's no incentive to keep them here. Is there a possibility of working with local towns in the area, of perhaps them doing, half their time there, half the time here, and working together with, coming up with some sort of benefits package for them to, working together between the two communities, so that way they can kind of stay between. And that they'll stay together within the towns because they'll have some sort of benefits package, but then, they're not a strain on either one of the towns.
Actually, that's been exercised in the Midwest, and I'm waiting to hear back from some of the chiefs out there where they've, it's usually like a county-wide system versus a town-wide system. So they can get things like this done in
Kind of like a
county-wide.
floater.
Yeah, so, you would float from, say, the station in this town to, today, and tomorrow you're going to be, in Ware. But unfortunately, we don't have a system that's built like that. I have discussed it at the chief level between other departments, but they really don't know where to start with it, just because the governance changes from one community to the other. So, again, it's, an interesting topic, but you're picking up on a good point.
What do you think of the idea?
I like it, job sharing between communities. In New Hampshire, I'm not clear on the governance end of it, on, for example, who owns whom and who does the hiring. Are they my employee or are they your employee? So there's a lot to work out, and I think it's going to take time.
Many places is county, like Florida's county.
Right.
Out west, like you say, it's county.
Not New England.
I don't think that's what we're talking about here tonight. We're talking about the
No.
budget and
No.
what's before us.
There's cost savings that go along with that, but we're not
That's-
there
I mean,
yet.
I'm never in favor of adding money to the budget, and especially if the selectmen don't plan to use it in that manner. But I just have concerns about putting part-timers in this. It
Well-
just seems like to me, it's trading the long-term for the short-term.
I agree with you to a certain extent. This is something that was studied by the department, and this is something that they brought forward and wanted to try to go ahead with.
I'm sure if we offered the chief 2 full-timers, he'd probably, or 4, the staffing full-time that he
These
wanted, he'd
8
jump at it.
full-timers would be over $1 million.
Yeah?
I don't think that'll be good for the budget.
No, it won't be good for the budget. There isn't any other way to get the smaller number.
And I can only say one thing. The town of Goffstown has operated a fire department with both more call than more full-time for years and years and years. It looks to me, and I can only say, from what I see, that we are now, right now, meeting the needs of what has to be done by the fire department. In the future, things are gonna change. And they're working on it.
That's true. I also think, we're also, New Hampshire's at what, 2.9% unemployment right now, so that means we're almost at full employment. You're gonna find less people who are willing to work part-time and take this kind of deal if they can get full-time somewhere else.
And one of the problems that we've always had, and I don't know if you have it today, was we would train them, they become certified, state 1, state 2, whatever you want to call it. And then it's a part-time fire department, and they can go to Manchester or some other town that's staffed fully around the clock and have a shift work and be able to take 2 or 3 days off at a time and shift.
We're missing the point.
No, but that's what's
Well, I-
creating some of the
You're
problems.
missing what the chief said, okay? Now, let's think about the fire department and how full-time fire departments work. They work on and off, so there are full-time firefighters that are off for like 4 days in a row. They want to pick up some extra work, Manchester, Bedford, whoever, they want to pick up some extra work, so they pick up some part-time hours at the ambulance. The accommodations we're going to have here are going to allow, the new fire station is going to have bedrooms and beds and kitchens, and so, and that's what I understand, and if you heard what the chief said, those are the people he's going to target, try to get to come in. We
I
have,
just think that I'm not saying let's go to a full-time fire department across the board. We already have a combination of part-timers and full-timers, and we're gonna keep that combination. But if we're already having trouble retaining part-timers, I'm worried about adopting a plan that has us adding more part-timers.
okay, so do you want to put in 4 full-timers starting July? That's what it's going to take to do what he wants to do. Starting in July of next year.
How does hiring 4 part-timers fulfill that same need? Because that's what the proposal is, hiring 4 part-timers.
The initial recommendation in the report was to hire 4 full-time in July of next year, to start them in July. And then the following year, in fiscal year 2018, we would hire an additional 4 full-time. But in the meantime, in 17, what we would do, we would augment staffing with part-time, combination part-time and full-time, to try to get that response time down. And so, without a doubt, managing a part-time system is a challenge. And you're picking up a lot of the points that we're concerned about also. But, whatever it takes to create a system that reduces the response time, that's our goal. Is it easier just to hire full-time? Sure, but there's a price tag that goes along with it. In any rate, the other direction, any direction that you want to go in, we'll try our best.
So is it, so wait a minute,
Elizabeth,
but wait.
you got something confused. We're not talking about hiring 4 full-timers, 4 part-timers. You could hire
Yep.
10 part-timers.
It'd most likely be 15 or 16 or 17.
Yeah, you hire a bunch of part-timers, not just 4.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification. But then to fill this, so it's not going to be an increase in overtime.
No, we're still going to be operating with the same full-time staffing that we have now, and they're still going to need vacation leave and so on, sick leave, so we need to continue hire the way we do with overtime. But part-time is part-time, and again, they don't get overtime, they don't get benefits, they're just coming in, working their hourly rate, and they leave at the end of the day.
Okay.
You
You
call the program.
Dick, other people got their
Sorry,
hands
there's a
up over
bunch of
there.
people who've been waiting to talk here.
Well, I don't,
Dennis and then Mike.
I'm not as afraid of having part-time firefighters. Afraid, not the right word, but it's not like we're not hiring like part-time cooks or part-time clerks or something. These are guys that are like, I think you're probably going to draw from the call pool a lot, right? Like some of
And
those
we
guys
do.
may take some.
Yeah, and we do.
And you're going to get people that are trained, like that meet all the firefighter requirements and everything, that just don't have a full-time job yet. I mean, yeah, you're going to have more turnover, but I mean, I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. I don't think, like, safety-wise, it's going to be that big of a deal.
I
to
don't
have
either. I just don't know if we're going to be able to
part-time.
find these people. Mike?
It seems to me that the chief and his crew have come together with a number of different options. They've put them together and talked to the select persons. They've gotten to a point in saying, let's try this. This doesn't mean it's going on forever, and I'm sure they'll be monitoring it to see if it's successful or if it needs to be adjusted. I think we're just getting too deep into this.
The way this is set up, it's 0 impact to the budget. It's
Right,
coming
because
out
everything's
of,
coming
it's
out of
coming
the
out of
emergency
the
services.
So it's not costing the taxpayers any money this way. It's all coming, there's no way the ambulance fund can support 4 full-timers this year or next year, and then 4 full-timers the following. It's never gonna happen. The ambulance fund just can't support that. Okay? It probably can't support 4 full-timers. So this is the most feasible way to get the program started to see if it'll even work. And if it doesn't work, then we're sitting back here next year, the chief says, boy, that didn't work, we're gonna have to go in a different direction. But I've gotta rely on the people that we've hired to do the position, to come up with a plan, and this is the plan they came up with. It doesn't impact the budget, it's coming out of the EMS fund, and I think we need to move on from this subject.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Anything else in the fire department budget?
One quick one. Promise. I know the line items for physical exams and turnout gear was significantly higher, and I'm assuming that's part of this plan?
Yes.
And those costs are also all rolled into the EMS
Yes.
rates?
Okay, anything else from fire? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, so now we've made our way all the way through the budget. There was, Scott's not here, but he had brought up something about the parking lot.
There's was discussion between the police chief and Director of Public Works, that there may not be time next year with the Main Street project, be able to get the work done at the police station. And the police chief has offered to put that off for a year.
Okay, so is that what the selectmen have decided they want to do?
The selectmen have not discussed it yet. But that's, came from the police chief and the DPW director. And I will bring it to the rest of the board on the 22nd.
Okay, well, we need to make our decision before then.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you have the ability to make that cut, and I bring it to the board and say this is a cut, and we can agree or disagree. That's all.
Angela?
Didn't they already push this back quite a few years now? Not that, already.
Yeah, I think they have, at least one.
We can make it a
More
cut
than that, I
at the
think.
public hearing.
But the situation is, Angela, that we have a major project going on by DPW this year, which would be the Main Street project.
Right.
And they want to concentrate their full effort on that.
Understandable.
So they decided that between the police chief and Adam, the DPW director, that maybe we could push that off for a year. It's not critical. It's-
No, and I just want to make sure, I just feel bad it keeps getting pushed off. I'm like, one of these days, right?
So Pete, what I'm hearing is that whether or not the Budget Committee supports the appropriation, the work cannot get done this year, so it will be put off until next year anyway?
Well, we could possibly, if some, by the grace of God, something gets done early and we can get it done, sure, but if we can't, it will be pushed off, and we could always encumber the funds for the next year, too. I would just assume, in order to keep things in order, that's which is why I like, I don't like pushing stuff off, I don't like encumbrances, but that's entirely up to the rest of the board and to this committee.
Mike?
Is it safe to say
Did
it's,
you want to speak to that?
Good evening. One of the things that I know Scott Gross had asked me last time, he was looking for a breakout, and since that particular meeting, I had a breakout of all the expenses for it. And one of the things that I just kind of want to point out, and I had spoken to Pete about it, and I think that outsourcing this particular project is not going to be in the best interest for anybody. I think that our Public Works Department does a phenomenal job maintaining our current parking lot. And for them to construct, design, build the whole parking lot makes a lot of sense in a number of ways, because if in fact they're the ones that are going to be maintaining it, it'd make more sense for them to actually build it. And I think that they can do it for cheaper. They can do it probably faster, and they can do it without me having to be the general contractor or standing out there making sure that everything looks okay. They are by far, to me, the most trustworthy people to do so. And I'm not sure with the amount of workload, they're miracle workers, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get everything done that they need to do on Main Street, as well as servicing the rest of the community and the towns, when our parking lot is not the biggest priority for them next year. That being said, if they get everything done in 2018, this comes back, I think that they could bang this out at some point in time of their slower period. And pushing it back one more year does not set the agency back in any negative fashion. So I wouldn't be terribly opposed to it. Now, that's $108,000 that most department heads probably wouldn't want to give up, but knowing that I want DPW to do it, it's worth the wait.
Okay, Mike?
you're addressing exactly what my question was going to be. I think it's going to be significantly less expensive if you're able to do it with DPW, which makes good sense for us to defer a year. And
And like we said, we're not sure if the DPW is going to have time to do that project of that scope, but with all what else they've got to do next year.
Okay.
And that was in the budget for 100 and...
107,
Or 107,
243.
283, something like that, yeah.
107, 283. Okay. Any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
yeah, would it be appropriate then for us to, I'll make a
can make a
motion that we deduct that parking lot dollars from the budget for this year.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dennis seconds. Okay, you want to speak to your motion?
I think just what I got finished saying, I think it's a way to get the, still get the value, but for at a less expense, and I think it is, the need is something that could be deferred a year without consequences that would be difficult, so.
Okay. Dennis, you want to speak to your second?
it's a no-brainer.
Okay.
We don't have time, the department head says do it, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, anybody else want to speak on this? All right, all those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. All right. So, anything else in the budget? We haven't gotten to special articles or anything else yet, really. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the rest of the stuff in this packet, Pete?
Okay, the rest of the special articles, and of course, Article 3 is gonna be the operating budget, which that number's gonna change now, so I won't, that'll come out later.
Right.
Doesn't, I mean, and then, we have Article 4 is a collective bargaining agreement, which we're getting close on. We don't have any details yet, but we are working on it. We're just waiting for some answers on that. Article 5 is what we talked about earlier, the $225,000 for the capital reserve fund. Article 6 is $15,000 to continue the transportation. This is a 2-year program. We are still waiting for the okay for Manchester on the grant, and this article is written that it's contingent on Manchester Transit Authority getting their grant, which will help offset our funds. So our cost will be $15,000 for the 2 years.
Does everybody understand what that is, especially the newer people? When it was initially brought in, those of us who were on the committee, we got a pretty full presentation, but does everybody else?
I was on that board.
Okay, is there anything you want to add, or?
No, it was originally we did a trial for a little while, right?
There was a
And now we're
this
moving
is the
it.
first, the article that we're under right now was a 2-year trial period,
Yep.
which is up on June 30th of 17. And this is to start the program again on July 1, 17 for 2 more years.
It was well used during that 2-year period.
It's been used, it's getting more and more activity all the time.
The entire town?
Yes, it's on call, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they drive people to doctor's appointments and
And, yeah,
to the bus, right? at
Well, a lot of it
Hannaford
will
and-
go to Hannaford, or, it was Shaw's originally, I think, but now it's
Yeah,
Hannaford,
but
or whatever.
Hannaford.
And then they take me in.
you can grab,
Manchester Transit from there.
you know, it runs on certain hours of the day. It's on on-call. You can call up, schedule a pickup. They'll pick you up and take you to certain areas. Or you can go down, get Hannaford and grab a bus that'll take you to some other, one of the other locations. It'll take you to the doctor's appointment. And it's been, well, it's like I said, gaining, it's been used more and more all the time.
Okay.
Can they use it for any purpose?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Any purpose?
Yeah.
We're trying to tap into it for Parks and Recreation for like senior Zumba and things like that as well. Trying
Rick
to-
uses it all the time.
We don't use it. No. We're trying to get folks aware of it to help bring some programming to it.
So the requirement is there a requirement? I mean, it's mainly for seniors and people with some kind of a disability, like if you
Right,
break your
right.
leg and you can't get to the
Yeah,
drugstore,
it's-
they help
yeah.
you with that
They're
kind of
not gonna,
stuff.
if there's nobody else, if there's not, if they're going that way, they'll give you a ride. That's more or less the way it works. I mean, some people don't have driver's licenses and need transportation to a doctor's appointment or something like that, so you can jump on you can call
Okay.
for a ride. If there's room, they'll take you.
Okay.
Article 7 is see if town will vote to raise and appropriate $230,000 for the repair of the Uncoonick Dam. The New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services has issued a letter of deficiency to the town regarding this dam. This would be in addition to Article 3.
So that's not going to come out of unreserved fund balance?
No.
Okay.
To see
Can
if
I ask why not? Usually this is the perfect kind of project for that.
The
The large capital expense, one-time expense.
Yeah, we decided
Sure.
not to do that at this time. It's a decision that was made at the Board of Selectmen not to do it on unreserved fund balance. We're using the unreserved fund balance for the $225,000 for Article 5.
And there's no unreserved fund balance to offset taxes in the budget, is there?
We don't know yet.
When are you guys going to decide that?
They don't decide that. We don't decide what you're going to use until next year.
Okay.
Till
Sometimes,
When you
though,
set the-
we've had budget committees
Yeah.
where the selectmen have said up front, we're
If
gonna
there was a
put
huge budget increase,
1,000 or
if there was
whatever.
gonna be a huge budget increase, yes, but right now, we're not anticipating a large budget increase.
Okay, okay. So Article 8?
Article 8,
This
see
is
if
the
the
library.
Yep. That is, I could tell you right now, the selectmen have not voted on this. We heard the proposal last night with some sketches, and we decided not to make a decision on this, study it a little bit more until December 22nd.
So what has changed from when Diane came and did her initial proposal to this committee? Diane, is there stuff that has changed?
Nothing's changed, but we didn't present it to you all.
Oh,
Because it had been pulled out of CIP at that point to be considered for an article, so we never got discussed here.
can we have you come up then and sort of fill us in?
Do you have any of the photos or the,
I didn't bring copies because I didn't
I
anticipate.
can take, I got one in my thing that I
I
can
have
probably.
maybe one or two.
I have one, I think, in the office that I can take and pass around.
Okay.
Richard?
The first question I guess I'm gonna ask is, $256,000 to have an architect draw up? That seems like an awful high price.
That's engineering and stuff.
Architectural and engineering planning.
Well, we just built a $2.5 million fire station. I don't think we spent any money anywhere near that, to draw up plans and anything. Did we? Seems like you got $4,000 or $5,000 that you started out with for the fire station.
Actually, I think we used impact fees, so it didn't really come out of the budget. But I know we used over approximately $50,000 from cost estimating to engineering to architectural, about $50,000 at that point.
Yeah, it's,
But that was a couple of years ago.
I don't know where the 256 comes from. That's kind of,
Like a lot of money.
get me, what,
That's the estimate that we have from the
Hold on, I'm
studies
sorry, everybody,
that
can we
we've-
please stop the multiple conversations around the table? It's too hard for people to hear, and Joanne's trying to take notes from the video, so, on the audio.
I don't have any handouts, I'm sorry. I
That's okay,
didn't
just-
realize I would need them tonight, so I didn't bring them. Peter has, I think you will
You might
see
want,
that.
you want to read that to him, or give, you want me to pass it up?
That I might
Dick,
have.
Rich,
We
Fire chief's
have
gonna make copies.
No, I have some of those. I don't
You
have
have
the
some of these?
sketch. I don't have the sketch.
Sketches of that.
All right, I'll pass these. This is the chart that Peter's referring to. This is just an Excel spreadsheet that we used. We brought it to CIP, which compares the square footage of our library building, the public space, because it's all public space except for furnace room, things like that. So on the top of that, it shows where we are in relation to the pool of communities that we're in comparison with. So you can see our square footage compared to theirs. And then the bottom one is a chart that shows our square footage and where we compare as far as communities with that square footage. So that's kind of eye-opening for us, and we've used that for a couple of years now. We brought it to the CIP committee at least twice, I believe. The one that's being photocopied, I'm sorry, I really don't have that with me, but it's an original site plan that Gary Meehan, an architect, did for us. He's the architect that did our expansion in the late 90s. So he'd been working with us. He was on our board for a year, and we kind of just did some brainstorming. What could it look like on the site that we have, on the land that the trustees purchased a few years ago in our original building? And so that'll be coming to you. So that gave us some ideas of what we could do with 10,000 extra square feet, which would bring us to a little over 15,000 square
Wow, so
feet.
you're talking about, what, tripling your size?
And we're still going to be in comparison on the low side, or I don't remember what that chart was. See, I don't even have the chart now that I've handed them all out. Sorry.
Yeah, we'd still be on the low side.
So we're not asking for a huge amount of space. We are looking for a 20-year plan, which is what our program is, 20 years. Thanks, Rich. So the money next year for 2017 is for the architectural and the engineering studies and the plans that go along with that. It used to be that was all in one year, the planning and the actual building, and we were asked to pull that out a couple of years ago by CIP, which we did. And that's why it's a 2-year process at this.
You said 2017. You're talking
Next year.
about 2017,
That's next year.
spending 256,000.
Yes.
Hey, what you're seeing, I could, if you don't mind, I'll help with the.
Yeah,
I
that
got
would
the-
be great.
The
Thank you.
presentation last night. What you see here is the existing building, and here is a 10,000 square foot, single-story building. Okay? Now, here's the parking spots here. Kind of ignore these parking spots because they don't really belong to us.
I was
Those are bank parking.
Those are bank parking,
Yeah.
they don't belong to us, so kind of, take a pencil and put a knot through there.
Right, well, they're helpful when the bank's closed, they're not usable for
Yeah, right.
the library
Now,
community.
this is the driveway into a back parking lot here. That is when the town purchased that property, the library purchased that property, that next building up, I understand, is a shared driveway, which would give access to these 20 spots back here.
Is that house still on the market, or is that, has been sold? It's changed hands a bunch of times.
I don't know.
Yeah, the
But
big
this
yellow
would
one
be,
on High
this would
Street.
be the driveway, and this would be shared, this would be the shared driveway here. Here's that house up on the hill there. And then there'll be the 15 spaces here, and then 20 spaces here, 10,000 square feet, single-story building.
So where are those people gonna park who live there?
They must have a driveway or something up there, I don't know.
Yeah,
The
they have-
town owns the easement to that driveway, so,
Okay. Richard?
Has any thought been given to building a library in Pineapple?
when I was hired, there was a branch library in Pinardville.
Yeah.
It didn't have sustainable numbers, as I understand it.
We closed that in, I think, 2000.
That's all, that was over where Tire Warehouse, the Two Friends Cafe.
Goffstown
they had-
Plaza.
Yeah, the plaza right in there.
So they didn't have the public support to keep that afloat.
We couldn't justify the amount of money it would have taken to make that a true branch. It wasn't a true branch for the library. We shared the space. We couldn't staff it if someone was sick, so we were juggling staff back and forth. It wasn't a good situation for us.
Having two facilities really jacks the cost up very quickly. There's a lot of administrative overhead when you start running two separate buildings.
Yes.
Well, that all depends if you already own the building or not.
No, just from a staffing perspective, I think you end up having to get more staff than some redundant staff at two buildings when you can combine things when you're at one building.
But-
That's just been my experience through my own business experience. It gets expensive when you run two separate buildings.
It's not a plan that we've discussed with all seriousness at this point. So the numbers that we have, that 256,000 those are the estimates that we've received as far as the architectural and engineering studies. And then the trustees have committed $108,000 of their own money to drop that figure for the taxpayer.
So, okay, so how did you come up with that number, that 256?
It was a number that Gary Meehan worked on with us, and part of it is a percentage of what the total cost would be of the construction. I think it's like so many percent for this. So I'm going from memory, so please forgive me, but, so, I mean, he's a trained architect. He's done many, many projects, so we trust that the estimates that he helped us put together based on our project are valid.
Emily?
Okay, so the next question is how much does he envision the final project costing?
The construction, I think, is about 2.3 million.
Okay.
I gotta agree, 256 seems kind of high to me for this kind of stuff.
If you said you wanted $50,000, I'd be satisfied. But anything over $50,000, it seems to me it's just outrageous.
Mike?
I may be wrong, I'm not an architect.
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
This still has to go through the select board. Are we dealing with that tonight, or are we dealing with that after the select board?
Well,
What's the process?
You've sort of hit on a gray area here. I mean, normally we don't vote on things, we don't give our recommendations until we know what the selectmen are doing. Because if they don't recommend it, then usually we don't recommend it, because we don't recommend that voters vote money that the selectmen don't intend to spend. And it's their job to administer the budget. So if they're not gonna make a decision until December 22nd on this, I would recommend, my personal recommendation is that we don't vote on it until they come in and decide if they're gonna move forward with it or not. And we can take it to the public hearing. The public hearing is actually for our budgets. And we'll talk about these things briefly. We mention them, but we don't spend a lot of time on them. And we can always vote our right after the public hearing, we'll have our budget committee meeting, and we can vote our recommendation for it then.
Well, as in the past, doesn't the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen go to the budget public hearing with recommended and not recommended?
You know, I don't think we always do for the budgets, but I don't think we always done that for the special articles.
There have been cases where special articles have come in, like contracts and stuff, at the last
Right.
minute, and we never had an opportunity to look at them. And I
Right.
remember sitting up and saying, folks, this is the first time we've heard the presentation also.
Exactly.
So, last night was the first time we saw this,
Personally, I think we're fully within our rights as a committee to say at the public hearing, here's this proposal. If you guys decide to go ahead with it, here's the proposal. We had not voted on this yet. We have not recommended or not recommended because it was still in process.
I can tell you what the breakdown of that 256,000 is if you want. From our CIP form, 216,000 is for architectural fees, normal structural, mechanical and electrical engineering and planning. And then the other $40,000 is for the civil engineering portion.
So wouldn't this go out to bid, given the amount of money we're talking about?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that right now. I don't know how.
I'm pretty sure that for this
The
amount of money, something like this would have to go out to bid.
We would have to put out an RFP.
Yeah.
For the architectural portion. I don't know how the engineering portion would get handled at this moment.
This isn't the kind of engineering that Megan can do. Right.
Not putting Megan in that situation. That's not our job. Start building buildings like that.
Shows my confidence in her.
So Diane, you haven't gone out to bid yet and gotten like 3 quotes for what the engineering study would cost? Okay.
No.
The discussion, I can tell you, we had some discussion on this last night, was it wasn't necessarily the 250, it was the 2.3. Are we spending $250,000 on a $2.3 million project that may never, or would maybe have a hard time getting past the voters?
That was my concern.
I think
and that was the discussion we had last night. The point I brought up is we know we have issues with the school. We needed to, do some bonding. There was some fire station stuff we didn't do. We cut it out because we didn't want to go with large bonds. And do we want, life safety stuff before the library? So there was some considerations there. So, we just had to think about it because, like I said, we just got this piece last night. And this information, so we just wanted to put and it's a tough situation if you think about it, spending $250,000 knowing that this is just getting you to a $2.3 million bond down the road. And, you have to sit here and think, and I don't know how many of you will be here next year, are you going to support the $2.3 million bond for the expansion of the library? That, you got to have the forward thinking for that.
So just to clarify, though, the schools at this point are not looking, in the foreseeable future, they're not looking to build a new school or to do
We definitely
a
have.
massive wing or.
We have space concerns, as we all know. We have 2 elementary schools that exceed capacity. We currently do not have any plans to offer up a building project.
Because the hope is that enrollment will decline a little bit and we can stay put with what we have.
Well, that's the hope,
Right.
but that's not the trend we're seeing, so we do need to address something at some point.
Didn't they vote at your meeting, maybe your last meeting, to put one of them portable
Portables.
classrooms
Portables.
back?
We're still working on those
Okay.
details.
Mike?
Just from a process perspective, and I think the point you raise is, or that folks discussed, is a good one. Are we going to use this study after we pay $250,000 for it? And for my head, the budgeting process is you start with a budget level estimate, which is your $2.5 million plus the engineering and design. And you say, hey, do we have support? Is the community going to vote to support that level of expenditure? Once you've got that support, then you do an engineering and design package, and that tells you you're right in the range, or, hey, we're not quite there, or we don't need as much. But we're trying to put the cart before the horse in my head for what I think of as a way to tackle large-scale projects, which this is. I would really like to see, if we're going to put this in front of the voters, put the whole package in front, get an up or down. I don't know that we're going to learn another $250,000 worth of value by doing a study prior to that vote.
So let me ask a clarifying question, then. Don't you want to see what you're paying for? That's what this $256,000 is, so that there's actually a visual to go along with the actual
We're talking about
construction
really
project.
significant detail, and I'm not sure that you need that level of detail for deciding whether you're willing to spend $2.5 million. You know what's, roughly, you got the square footage, you know what you want to do for it. You've done a great job, your staff's done a great job, the Friends of the Library's done a great job of putting this together. But I just feel we're putting the cart before the horse, because we're getting down into fairly significant, if we're going to spend that kind of money, we better have big-time detail with a package of prints that's, going to fill the whole room here practically. I don't think people are looking for that much to make a decision.
In the past, haven't we had building projects where we've just kind of mulled it over and people have come back and said, well, we're not willing to put that much into it. So yeah, maybe we're willing to do a library expansion, but we're only willing to put $1.5 million into it. Then you would adjust your plans based on knowing that that's how much you have to spend. I think that's kind of what you're getting
kind
at,
of what I'm getting
right?
to, yeah.
I mean, maybe people want to do it, but they're not willing to do it to this extent.
Well, my point is you want to get that approval at that level first of what are we willing to put into this, and what is the community going to support? And then, yeah, get the detailed drawings and get the architectural stuff and figure it out. You need that before you start building, but you don't need it on the front end of this.
Well,
That's my concern.
Richard?
I guess the way I look at it is, if you're gonna build a 10,000 square foot building, today we know to build a building like that is so much per square foot. And if you multiply that times the 10,000 and come up with $2.5 million, then they probably carry 10% for architectural and other design work, which I think is a little high. But
Well,
that's probably,
just-
this is an estimate.
I don't have my stuff with, you're asking me a lot of questions when I don't have my material. Didn't anticipate that you'd be going into this kind of detail. So I'm going by my memory right now, which at my age is kind of iffy. So,
Come on.
yeah, So, I mean, I'm listening to all your comments. I'm writing all your names down because we will be forming a building committee. So see, there you go.
I thought you were going to say you're forming a hit list.
I am Italian, so watch out. So,
All right, well, do we have any more questions for Diane on this before we sort of continue our discussions and decide where we want to go?
I see this as a one-year promotional plan, very heavy promotion, have the community start to think about it, start to build in, this is a good thing for the town, and then to follow through with, when people start thinking about this and how good it's going to be for the community, well, then we start going into, this is what's going to cost. I would do a year of promotional, real heavy promotion for the need of the community for this library.
George?
Just to repeat, what I'm hearing here is that, what I see here is that this is a full architectural engineering plan out of here vis-à-vis what we've seen before in other large projects where we see conceptuals come in first with basic drawings and whatnot, square foot estimates, and take it from there, because this, this is a big thing to jump into doing complete engineering for something that we don't have a full feeling about whether the community will support it.
Right. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. If you need anything, let me know and I'll send it. Honestly, I mean, I have information if you're interested in it.
Okay.
I will happily send it along.
So what do you guys want to do? You want to take a vote to recommend or not recommend? You want to just let it lie? What do you want to do?
I'd like to know where the selectmen come
Yeah.
from. I
You
want
want
to
to wait
see
for
where
the
they
selectmen? You
land.
want to wait
Same
for the
thing.
selectmen? Brian, you basically said, see what the
Shoving it
selectmen
off
do.
on you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing. I mean, this is the budget committee. Is it a wise budget decision? Does this committee think it's a wise budget decision? That's what your job is. I disagree with Elizabeth that, because I sat in her chair for many years, that, we've always gone to a public hearing with everybody's hunky-dory, because there was many years it was, budget committee was no, selectmen was yes, and, when we went to the public hearing and we took the input and then made our decisions, I mean, it was enough people to make a change one way or
Well, we've been
another.
trying to get along with you guys, so, geez.
Yeah, and I don't have any objection to shooting down something you guys want. I'm just
Oh,
not in
thank
favor.
you.
I'm just not in favor of advocating to spend money that you guys say you're not planning to spend. I mean, that to me is just voting you guys extra money that you're going to do whatever with.
Well, wait a minute, number one, you can't do that with a special article.
True.
That money is specifically for that. That's what we're talking about here, a special article. Those funds can only be used for that. And you're only talking about taxpayer funds, the difference of that, the 107 out of that 2 point whatever, is actual taxpayer funds.
Okay.
So remember,
Well-
because there's 107 of it's coming from library trustees.
But
We
I
have a-
think
108, I'm sorry.
for our purposes here
Please.
tonight, I think we need to be mindful of the topics that we take on, because we do have a lot of work to do. So certainly, I don't particularly want to vote on something until we know where you stand. But secondly, we've got the public hearing coming up. That's to solicit public input. Where the recommend and don't recommend come in are when we prepare for deliberative and moving on to the vote. So I don't think we have to go in, I don't expect us to go into public hearing.
She's right. Those recommendations are preliminary because we can change them after the
Exactly,
public hearing.
but they usually you go to the public hearing with a recommendation, because you're putting your budget forward.
Right.
And all these articles right now are recommended by the Board of Selectmen, except that one. And I don't think that we should sit here and vote on it until the selectmen put their markings on it. And
So what you're saying, let me ask you something, Dick, okay? If the Board of Selectmen say no, what are you gonna say?
I'm gonna say no.
If
The
the,
Board of Selectmen say yes?
I'm still gonna say no.
Okay.
All right, so what difference does it make what the Board of Selectmen say?
Well, it makes a difference to the public. If you're not supporting it, and I am, they're not gonna vote for it.
if they don't support it, it's not even on the warrant. If you guys say no, then you're not putting it forward on the warrant, right?
Well, we may recommend it to go forward to a public hearing. I don't think that would happen. Hopefully, we'll make a decision, but
Okay.
We're in the weeds.
All right,
Do what you
so
want.
it sounds like nobody wants to vote on this tonight, so let's move on. All right, Article 9 is Main Street, and I do have an update on that. We had tabled that last time, Main Street, because we had concerns about how viable the organization was going to be since it was in this sort of state of flux. Scott had requested that we change the warrant article to include language that says something along the lines of the selectmen can opt not to give the money if they don't see evidence of a feasible business plan. Sue informs me that that is sort of implicit in all of warrant articles. The selectmen have the option, if they think that there's something funky going on, that they can say, we're not gonna release the funds until these requirements are met. So we don't, we don't need to change the warrant article. The warrant article is fine as stand to have that level of oversight from the selectmen. Okay? And Crispin's House, we already did vote on. I don't remember what the exact vote was. I thought it was unanimous with an abstention, but we'll.
No, I was recused, so it was unanimous with nothing, nobody opposed, nobody abstaining.
Okay, I'm not sure if she's recused herself, isn't that an abstention, or is that like nothing at all? Okay. Okay, so we'll have to check our minutes for that and get you those exact numbers, but that was already voted on. Okay, so that's where we stand overall with the entire budget, and then there's other information in this packet that Sue photocopied for us tonight.
I'm going to ask Sue to come up real quick and just go over
Okay.
a couple of the things that we did tonight. You have none?
So these numbers,
Oh, no.
remember, still include the 107 for the parking lot. Right. Okay, so they would be adjusted down, and that's the only, you already fixed the conservation.
I did fix
thing, right?
conservation, and I did take the 1,000 out from employee development and the election line. And now with your 107, so with those, just those, not counting the actions tonight, the tax rate is a 5-cent increase, but with your action tonight, the tax rate on the town side would go down.
Yeah, probably about 2 pennies, maybe? Maybe 2 cents.
Well, what was it, at 9 cents before?
Yeah.
And we cut, but we needed 60,000 to get to a level tax rate, and you cut 107.
7.
So you're below a level tax rate.
2.5 cents, 2 cents. I
On the
mean,
ta- Just on the town side.
That's great. Yay!
but that does not include.
Special warrant articles.
Oh, no, it includes all the special warrant articles, with one exception.
Which
It
is
doesn't
the
include the
contract.
collective bargaining agreement, because we're still negotiating that. So we don't know the cost impact of that.
But it includes the library?
Yes.
So if that doesn't go forward, that would be a further reduction.
Of 100, but it's not the 250, it would be,
140.
148.
which would be another nickel.
No.
No, dime.
No, that would be about a dime, yeah.
Yeah, about a dime.
About a dime off the tax rate. So you're looking at maybe 12 to 13 cents, if that doesn't go through, which it sounds like it's not going to. 12 or 13 cents. Don't give me that look. I'm sorry, that's my opinion. It didn't sound real promising to me. So that's like 13 cents, 12 to 13 cents off of the tax rate, possibly,
On the town side,
on the
yeah.
town side. That's pretty good.
Did that take out the fire article, this 72,000? That's
That's
already removed,
Yeah,
right?
we already, we did that last night. We removed
Yeah.
that. So as you can see, the Board of Selectmen's been working very hard to
They have
hold the
been.
tax rate and
Oh, yeah, them guys
They've
work.
been working
They're
very
workers.
hard.
Good pat him on the back, right?
We've
Yeah, they're workers.
Worth every nickel.
Okay, so if you can see on these 2 pages, it gives you your numbers on the bottom there. These kind of overview pages, the summary operating budget. Sue, is there anything you want to go through with us particularly?
Just the highlighted lines of the changes that the conservation made. Like I said, the election employee development line went down. Other general government, that's where the conservation line is, so that's a milfoil one. And now I will go back and do the parking lot, which is in CIP, so that's your operating budget article now, number will change, as well as the revenues.
Was it revenue? Were there
No,
revenues?
Well, we wouldn't have the
no,
revenue
revenues
difference.
for parking lot, okay.
So we can just take that off, right?
Yes, off the operating budget number.
So the 20,404,373 minus 107,283. So I come up with a new budget of, operating budget of 20,296,990. Does that sound right?
I
If
don't
you
know.
had a calculator?
Yeah, that's
No, I don't
okay.
have
No,
a
it's just right. She's got it right.
Okay. Okay, so are there any questions about this part of it for Sue? Okay.
I would just like to take 1 minute to thank the department heads for working so hard on their budgets. They did a great job.
The
They
department
really
heads did a great job.
They certainly did.
They really did.
They make my job a lot easier.
Yes.
Well, I just think back of,
Now that we've done it here,
5 years ago or
Yeah,
4 years ago? Yeah. Okay,
didn't
thank
even know where
you.
to start with. Next time. No, it's just, yeah, love you now, that's all.
Okay, so here we are. Here's our
Make it-
number. Are
I'm gonna make
people,
a motion to go forward.
are
with the
people
public hearing.
satisfied? Are they think they can support this? Kind of informally, yes, no? Does anybody think we need to keep working? Anything else? I want to make sure everybody's had every chance to talk about everything in this budget.
I just
George?
wanted clarification on Article 9. We took no vote on Article 9, is that correct?
That is correct. We haven't voted on any of the special warrant articles yet.
Okay,
Except for Christmas.
Yeah, except
yes,
for Christmas.
okay, because
That was
I
the
knew the one
we-
after we'd done,
Right. So,
so,
but we'll still do that. We'll
Oh,
do the
wait.
operating budget
That'd be
first, and
fine.
then we'll work through.
okay, great.
Okay.
So I'm gonna move that figure on an operating budget.
Okay, so you're gonna move the figure of 20,296,990 for the operating budget for the town. Do I have a second? Brian seconds. Richard, you wanna speak to your motion?
I think, like Pete said, everybody's done a good job, and they've been cognizant of the fact that the taxpayer out there, and the taxpayer, has to pay the bill, and they're doing a good job to try to keep it down so we can live in this world.
Okay.
Live in our world.
Brian?
Just very responsible budgets.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Emily abstains. Okay. So,
Well,
there we go.
Angela didn't get an opportunity to vote. I don't know.
I don't know where she went.
I don't know where she went.
There she is.
We just
Just raise your
voted,
hand.
Angela, on the town budget.
To move it forward.
Really, the 2 minutes?
Timing.
Like my kids can't play the phone.
All right. So next is,
Hopefully it was a good passing.
it passed unanimously with one abstention.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that's Article 3. Article 4, we cannot vote on yet because it's the contract, we don't have it. Article 5 is the $225,000 coming from the unreserved fund balance for the Fire Department Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund. Have a motion or discussion
Motion to approve.
Second.
to
Recommend, exactly.
To recommend. Richard seconds. All right, you guys want to speak to your motions?
No,
Richard?
enough's been said.
It's an ongoing program, and we're keeping up with the replacement of apparatus.
Okay. Any other further discussion? The only thing I'll say is this is one thing I wish hadn't come from the unreserved fund balance. I do think this is an ongoing program. I think this should be something that we should be used to every year for the tax benefit. I would have put the dam on the unreserved fund balance and had this one go straight through. That's my only comment, but, all right.
But this is the way we've done it every year since its inception, so.
I'm not sure about that, Pete.
We don't need to keep talking about this, do we?
No, we don't. Brian's correct. You and I can argue about this later.
It's probably a way to get some more money.
All right, so all those in favor, raise your hands. Any abstent? Oh, it was unanimous. I'm not even gonna bother going through all that.
1200?
Huh?
1200?
Yeah. Okay, Article 6 is the $15,000 for the Manchester Transportation Authority, or for the transportation program contingent upon the Manchester Transportation Authority grant. Angela?
Yes.
You raised your hand. Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion to recommend.
Okay, do I have a second?
Well, second.
Dennis, you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think this is actually a vital service. I think it's the primary purpose for it was for the elderly and the disabled, the people who are most vulnerable, and I think that it's doing its job.
Okay, Dennis?
I agree with her.
Okay. Any more further discussion on this? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. So 11-0-1. Okay. Article 7, $230,000 for the Uncanunic Lake Dam. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so it was Richard and George. I should remember to say this for Joanna on the tape, but anyways, okay. You want to speak to your motion, Richard?
Just that dam needs repair, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years, and now's the time to come, let's fix it and get it out of the way.
Okay. George?
Say the same thing. Needs to be done.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. All right, that's unanimous. 12-0. Article 8 is $256 for the library. Do we decide we are not taking action on this? We decide to wait?
I did. I make a motion, we don't take any action. It's time until the selectmen come up with a figure.
Why don't you make a motion that we table it?
Okay, I'll make a motion, we table
Can we have a
it.
second? Second. All right, all those in favor of tabling, raise your hands. Any opposed? Two oppositions.
Oh,
Pete
my
and
God.
Angela.
Well, the decision already pretty well been made. There's no reason to table it.
Okay, Article 9. This is the $20,000 for Main Street. Can I have a motion
A motion to recommend.
to recommend? Do I have a second? Pete seconds. So Angela made the motion, Pete seconded. You want to speak to your motion?
I do. I think it's the programs that do come out of the Main Street program are wonderful programs that people actually look forward to every year.
Okay, Pete?
I think it's something that we've been doing, and I think they've done some good things to draw attention to our community, which we hope in the future will draw business, more business to our community.
Okay. Any other further discussion on this item?
Yes.
Mike?
Just, I think we wrestled last time with contingent on some sort of a, whatever, an organization, a business plan and so
Right.
forth. And I'd like to see us put that in here. It seemed like a good idea where they
We
are.
just
right
talked about that just a second ago, that it's already implicit in the warrant article.
now.
That
You have an article with a contingency now, right? Which is the transportation, the bus program has a contingency in it right now as we speak.
Okay,
So I'm just questioning why we wouldn't
so
put the
you
same
want it
kind of contingency.
explicitly in the,
Why wouldn't we, I guess?
It's already implied in that. The one for, the one you talked about, transportation, is we're not gonna fund that project. We can't fund that project unless that grant is awarded to Manchester. There's nothing of that here for that we would have to, that we don't have control of. We still have control if there's just something that we find wrong with the Main Street, the selectmen can withhold the payment. If
I
that's,
understand, I'm just curious why
But
we.
the-
why
if we do it
one
for this one, we'd have to do it for everything.
Yeah, and
We'd have to
it's-
do it for Crispin's house, we'd have to do it for any,
Oh, no, it's a different situation, because those are, already have good plans in front of them, they've got an
True.
organization that's moving, Main Street's in a flux. I support Main Street, I think it's a good plan, it's a good group, there's a lot of good things happening. I'm just,
okay?
I think Scott raised a good point at the last session, and I just question why we wouldn't,
Okay.
that's just my question.
Well,
That's
you
just me.
can move to amend the motion, that we make it contingent upon this. You'd have to get a second, and we'd have to vote.
well, we would have to send the article then to be reviewed.
It would have to go to.
Yeah, we don't write the articles, so just, they have to be reviewed before they can, for the legalities of them, and I don't know what the legalities.
Is there a cost to that, Sue?
Well, we
Does
send
it-
it to two places for review. We send it to DRA on all appropriation articles, and we also send it to town attorney.
So the town attorney's gonna have a cost.
Right.
to have him do that, okay.
To research it and see if it's,
Move on,
and he may come in and say it's not necessary, it's already implied, so.
no
Let's
problem.
just spend $100 and something to get that.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Nope, that was unanimous. Okay, that's 12-0.
And we already did the other one.
We already did Crispin's house. And I'll get that number for you. It's gonna be in the minutes.
So we're done.
All right, so I think that's it. Is there any other We voted on everything. We recommended everything or not recommended everything.
Just not 8.
Huh?
Just not 8.
Just not 8?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kathy Ball wanted me to remind people of whose terms are expiring. And basically, it's Susanna and John, and Carl, you only were elected to a 1 year, so you would need to run again. And my term is expiring, and I'm not running again, so that seat will be open. So, and I don't know what Susanna and John are doing. So, Richard?
We got the
Oh!
waterworks budget.
Thank you. Water precinct budget. Anyway, so Kathy wanted me to remind you that you need to file if you want to run again and go through that process.
There was okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Now we're going to move on to the last budget we have. And I should let you know, I did talk to Grassmere Water Precinct. They sent their budget. There was something that I did not really understand in it. I asked them to come in, and they couldn't make it tonight. They're going to come to our meeting after the public hearing. So the public hearing is on January 11th at the high school at 7 p.m. Right, Sue? 7? Okay. 7 p.m. at the high school. We all need to be there. We'll present our budgets to the public. Immediately after that meeting, we will have our budget committee meeting in which we put our final recommendations on, no, we can change anything we want at that one, right? It's deliberative that we can only change if there's action.
So,
Is that
Or
you
anything
could
with
only
discussion
change it
on it.
if it's brought up in the meeting, right?
That's for deliberative. For public hearing, we
Yes.
can do what we want.
Okay.
well, normally it's, okay.
Normally, we don't unless,
There's discussion on it, but.
right, or some other outside
Right.
circumstances, but, okay, so that's the plan for January 11th. So Grassmere is going to come to that January 11th meeting at the high school, present whatever they need to present, and then we'll vote on their budget right then and there. So, but we still have Goffstown Water Precinct budget that Richard
Is that our
delivered
very
to
next
us.
meeting, January 11th?
January 11th is our next meeting. So, did I send out, did I forward it to everybody, Richard's email?
I didn't see an email
I can't
from
remember
you.
if I did. All
Okay,
right, so
well,
Richard
I'll
had
just tell 'em.
responses
I'll
to
just
some of
tell
our
'em.
questions, so you can go
'Cause
through
Scott
this with me.
questioned the insurance, the liability, property insurance, and vehicle insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and why the increase. The increase happened because of the municipal trust fund insurance. They canceled the insurance, they went out of the insurance business for that. So we had to go with another insurance company. We picked the Primex, which the town used. And they came in and they evaluated all our stuff and everything, and that's the price they put on it. So
Okay.
we are probably uninsured through the trust, you know?
Right.
And the other question was the $8,000 for the forestry. And that gets kind of involved, but that forestry part of it was, there was 2 gentlemen that left all that land to the Goffstown Water Precinct up there around the reservoirs. And it comes under the state of New Hampshire and the forestry part of it, New Hampshire Forest and Lands, and then, I forget the other one, let's see, what is it? I got it written down there. The Society for Protection of Forest and Lands, and Mr. Roth and Mr. Parker left it, and it's in trust to us to maintain it, the forestry, the forest part of it. Have a forester that comes in and looks at it, marks the boundaries every 10 years, and he recommends where we cut the timbers, and he handles the whole thing. He pays the town timber tax, he pays his own salary out of it, he pays for the harvesters, he pays for the mill that cuts the lumber, and after he's paid all the bills, he gives us a check of what's ever left.
So it's straight revenue. We don't hire him.
That's right.
I thought it was.
So, I'll make a motion, we pass Goffstown Waterworks budgets.
Were there any other questions that people
It's
had
at-
about that budget?
It's $771,758.
Okay, Richard makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Brian seconds. Do you want to speak to your motion? Either of you?
Nope.
Richard?
There is an increase in that budget considerably this year. If you go back to a number of years ago, it went from $7,000 down to $613,000 because of construction of some new mains that didn't cost as much, didn't do as much. So it varies back and forth. This year, that money, the amount of money that increased it is not only what we always have been putting in for main repairs, but it's also the added cost that it's gonna cost us on Main Street, which is $140,000 or more in that vicinity.
Okay. Any other discussion? Emily?
I have a question of something I really don't quite understand, and that's what the hydrant charge, how that works.
We charge, we've been charging $400 a hydrant.
Per
It's
year.
been there for years, so much a hydrant. It's to maintain them, shovel them out, take care of them in the winter.
Oh,
And
okay.
fix them when they're leaking and
Somebody
drain
gets
them.
it.
We have to pump them out sometimes because the drains on the bottom don't work. And there's a lot of maintenance to it, and a lot of times they get hit by a car. The plows have hit them. We never know who did it. If it's a car and we know who did it, comes from the police department, then the insurance company pays for it. But it's all part of the operation, and what it costs.
Standard
to
practice
operate.
that the fire hydrants are rented, right? I mean, that's done everywhere.
Yeah. It's
We also pay Grassmere for their hydrants.
And
we also
Manchester.
pay Manchester for their hydrants.
And
Okay.
we're paying less in the village than other places.
Yeah, I just didn't understand that.
Okay.
And all I can say is, all these mains, they're 100 years old. A 6-inch main, I can't put my fist in. They're all, they were just cast iron. Today, the pipes are all lined, and we're even starting to use plastics, which is much better. It makes for better water, cleaner water, better testing. But it all takes time, it takes money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? George?
No?
Anybody else? I will just say I don't have any problem with the budget. I don't have any problem with increasing your rates, but I do have a problem with a 67% rate increase in 1 year, which is why I'm going to have to
And
vote
I
against it.
understand that, Elizabeth, and that's all so we can change the 100-year-old pipes on Main Street from the library to Cumberland Farms, and we gotta cross the river, and it's $40,000.
Those are entirely reasonable expenses. I have no issues with that, but I think that's too steep of an increase for 1 year. I think it should have been
And
done
I have to
gradually,
agree with you,
and that's
but
my only objection.
the Waterworks has gotta do it, or we'll leave the old mains there, and then we'll dig up your new road next week. 'cause
Right.
it brings a leak.
Okay, so any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Me, so that's 11 to 1. Okay, so, any other business for the committee? After our January 11th meeting, we will have one more meeting in February, and then that's when we're going to go through basically, and, actually, I take that back. We have to meet right after the deliberative sessions, the town and the school, so you should be prepared to come to those. And then we meet one more time in February, and it's more of a regular meeting. We allow people to make public comment, and we'll go through and approve our minutes and just kind of clean up the stuff from the year so we finish up, so. Okay, that is the third Thursday in February.
But the next meeting will be the 11th.
The next meeting is January 11th. Okay, I'll send out an email with the dates of the deliberative sessions and the public hearing and stuff like that, so that everybody can have that, and you know what our schedule is for the rest of, until March, which is when the election is. So, okay,
Well, we have that information already, don't you?
not at my fingertips. I mean, I do have it, I just have to go home and look it up in my calendar and,
2017, public hearings on the 11th, and then the 17th is statutory deadline for the public hearing on the budget. And the 30th is the statutory deadline to post the warrant. Deliberative session is on February 8th, and the official ballot is on March 14th.
and the school has,
Is on the 4th, February 4th.
okay,
10 a.m.
okay. So we will send that out, or I will send that out. Okay, is there any other business? Then.
Motion to adjourn?
And a second, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Turn it off in there.
And you get your Tuesdays and Thursdays.